Well, as you know, SAARC is a very elaborate agenda, and it meets every 2 years. And this meeting is the pre-summit meeting of the Council of Ministers. And so it prepared the agenda and many issues for discussion. This meeting was, in that sense, very successful because there were a few issues on which we had to reach consensus, and in very spirit of goodwill and solidarity, those were reached. And now the agenda is moving forward because there are very large areas of cooperation which have been identified. And these are, some of them are ongoing, like trade and cultural cooperation and others. But this time, the adoption of these Sustainable Development Goals by UN has provided a new framework in which the SAARC can realign its own goals with Sustainable Development Goal and create mechanisms by which you can cooperate with each other. For example, the first task is to convert these goals into national goals. And that requires cooperation because each country doesn't have to develop its own methodology of how to do it. There is available, so all countries can help. Then each country needs a monitoring mechanism. So there also we can. And in this sense, we will have a common set of goals what to achieve by 2030. So our development agenda will therefore become more meaningful and better coordinated. So this is one area. Then there are a couple of other things which are coming up. One is disaster management and environment, on which there has been good discussion because these are both areas in the context of climate change. They are becoming more important. So these are the kind of issues on which we have made. Well, there was a discussion, and if you recall in Kathmandu summit, there were 3 agreements, a draft agreement. The energy agreement was signed, the other 2 are pending, and work is going on, and we hope there'll be a meeting of transport ministers in the coming weeks before the summit, which will make progress on the remaining 2 agreements. The primary purpose of the meeting was to deliver the formal invitation from the Prime Minister of Pakistan to the Prime Minister of India for attending the summit. And that I did with all the 7 ministers, so that we invited them formally to come to the summit. But in addition to that, of course, we had agreed in 9th December at the time of Heart of Asia meeting in Islamabad to start what you call a comprehensive bilateral dialogue. And that has been pending because we are having a number of areas in which this was happening. So we discussed generally on partly the SAARC cooperation and partly how to resume that particular dialogue. And in that context, we also, the Pathankot incident had delayed the start of the foreign secretary level meetings. You see, first of all, there is a very large, what I would call, political reservoir of political goodwill between the 2 countries, and we must use that to develop our relationship. And so the willingness on both sides is very strong that we must do so. But obviously, because of the transport difficulties and the distance, etc., we have to focus on those areas which is possible. So 3-4 areas that I discussed with my colleagues. One is, of course, cultural cooperation, in which we have a lot of potential, and tourism, sports, and education. So in all these areas, there is great potential. In education, for example, we are providing more than 25 scholarships every year, and we have agreed to increase them as required. And cumulatively, there are, I think, about 6,000 alumni in Nepal who have studied in Pakistan or have Pakistani degrees. This covers engineering and, more importantly, now medical. Our Council of Surgeons and Physicians is regularly conducting examination for postgraduate medical degrees here, and therefore a large number of people can clarify. And I think in engineering and many other fields, so education is one area. In tourism, there is a very great scope for what I call religious tourism, because we have very strong presence of heritage of Buddhist stupas as well as their relics. And so already some groups have gone, but this can increase enormously. And of course, for mountain tourism, Pakistanis can come here. And so this kind of a thing is, in my view, very important. We can have very good sporting links. We have common interest in cricket and football and many other areas. So I hope that we can expand those. You see, if you study both these examples, European Union as well as ASEAN, the basic uh, sort of impetus comes from the role of the dominant country. In none of these countries, the large countries have tried to dominate the region or tried to do something. So when they play what I call a magnanimous role in terms of bringing everybody along, respecting their sovereignty, trying to, be as accommodative to their concern, the smaller countries, it works well. Now, ASEAN, as you know, have very successfully managed not to allow any political differences among them to dominate the problem and economic cooperation. And after EU, this is the most successful example. And SAARC, of course, has even larger population, and our potential is equally good because our human resources are comparable, if not better. So to that extent, I think what we require is a stronger political will to not allow our political differences and accommodate the political differences in such a way that we can move forward. The world is not going to wait for us. And without regional cooperation and without making a more what I call integrated market, we can't compete with the rest of the world. And in the world, as you know, there is a recession, and markets are not growing in Europe and America. So we have to look inwards. I mean, we have potential to trade much more with each other and within the region. Our trade is very small within SAARC compared to our other trade. So I think the potential is great, and so I hope it can move forward. It helps small and large countries. To give you one example, Nepal has enormous potential of hydro resources and water resources. In fact, the economic future of Nepal depends largely on how it can harness its water resources and its hydroelectric power resources. And Pakistan has very rich experience in this, and we can definitely collaborate. And if we create an energy market in the whole of South Asia, no, I think it's a very promising area. And we are very happy that your under-19 team performed very well. Yes. And that's the potential, because these are the people who become players in the test matches in the future. And so I think in this case, we'll be very glad both to provide any coaching facilities as well as exhibition matches and exchange of, because without this kind of exposure, the teams cannot develop. So I'm sure if, to Diplomatic Channel, these proposals are initiated, and also our cricket board is very anxious to participate in these activities. So well, I think in Pakistan, as you know, we were victims of many global fault lines in the last 30 years after the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. And it was growing. But in the last 3 years, we have taken some very decisive steps to control terrorism. First in Karachi in September 2013, then Operation Zarb-e-Azb in North Waziristan in June 2014, and then in January 2015, we started the National Action Plan, which was much more comprehensive. So as a result of these actions, the incidence of terrorism has declined by more than 50% in 2015 compared to 2014. So we have gained some very valuable experience in this task. Well, obviously, I'll renew my invitation to look forward to welcoming him on the 9th and 10th of November in Pakistan on the SAARC Summit. And this provides a very good opportunity for high-level contacts, because we need those contacts for, they have large number of areas of cooperation, but they all get an impetus when there are high-level political contacts. So that is number one. Secondly, well, as you know, we supported the entry of Afghanistan, which became a member. China is now an observer, and we hope that the observers can play a bigger role even before membership, because as you know, the integration of South Asia with Central Asia and the adjoining countries is very critical. And Pakistan and China have now signed a China-Pakistan economic corridor, which is coming from China, and it will extend both east and west towards Afghanistan as well as towards India. So I think if they are given the opportunity, the observers play a more active role, and the benefit can double.